Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk. This is episode 213 with myself. This week we're joined by Nguyen as well as guest Cait Hassett. Phil is currently away at training, but we're going to be excited to have him join us next week. So without further ado, I'm going to go and bring on Ann. We're going to kick this show off. We have a lot of social media news to talk to you about this week. Lots of updates from Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and more. One thing we're not going to talk about this week, Facebook, which is very surprising because Facebook typically dominates the social media headlines. However, this week, not so much news going on. So I'm going to bring on Ann. Ann, how are you doing this week?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So good to have you back as well, by the way. Really enjoyed. Oh, anytime. And really enjoyed talking backstage about all the topics that we're going to discuss this week, as well as the two tools that we are going to cover during our segment called Tool Time. So while I set up a few things backstage, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Cait, have you introduce Cait, and we'll kick things off. So Cait, it's fantastic having you on.
Hi, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
It should be a fantastic show.
Yep, it will be a fantastic show. And so for those of us who are not familiar with Cait, whose lovely face is gracing us this morning. So Cait Hassett is the head of social and influencer marketing for Keeper Security, which is an enterprise level password management tool, which we're going to find out about eventually some point, right?
Yes.
And then you got into social kind of like the rest of us, right? We kind of fell into it. You were a radio personality, needed to really expand and amplify your personal branding. And what better way to do that than social media? And you've had some agency experience as well as working in a theme park. I bet that's a very interesting conversation to have. So
definitely different.
Welcome.
Thank
It was
you.
great to meet you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm interested in hearing about the radio background. How'd you get started in that, by the way?
You'll honestly never believe it. It was like every great comeback story for a woman starts. I thought I was going to get married to my college sweetheart. We broke up instead, and I was about to graduate college. Like, what am I going to do with my life? And there was an advertisement on the radio station that I always listen to win a job in radio. And I said, I'm going to do that. And I tried out and I ended up winning. There was a couple different rounds and I won a job on the radio. This was in South Georgia, Valdosta. So it was the South Georgia, North Florida market. And the job was with the radio conglomerate. They owned 7 stations and an online newspaper. And over the course of 5 years, I worked for all 7 stations and the online newspaper.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it's like experience in voicing and learning different demos and sales and social media and branding that you didn't even really know existed until then. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's a crazy story.
I will say this. I mean, getting a job in radio. I mean, radio is one of those things where, you get really good experience for live video, or if you're going to do podcasting or any of those sorts of mediums with which you want to share your message. So I bet you probably know like the right equipment, for example, because you were probably like, hey, I'm using this microphone that, a lot of podcasters use, for example, or probably some, information on like controlling mixers and bringing in different sound clips and all that fun stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've actually consulted for a few friends that were trying to start up their podcasts on equipment and kind of how to, format it like a radio show and get sponsors because I have that background in radio sales as well and like selling my own show. So it's interesting how radio is like a dying industry, but all these skills I used, I've been able to take in other places of my life, including social media.
Definitely. This sounds like a very fun topic that I'd love to discuss further But I'm ready to go, by the way. So
let's do it.
When y'all are ready, just let me know and we can kick things off.
Let's rock and roll.
So where do we want to start, by the way? So we've got lots of topics, as you all know, but where do you want to start this week?
Let's start with mine and Phil's favorite topic of all times. When we LinkedIn.
So I was wondering if you're going to say animated GIFs or something like that.
Well, that has to do with LinkedIn too. So Phil and I have this thing where he's always like, you need to be personable and whatever on LinkedIn. And I'm like, yes, but I don't know about these animated GIFs and other things. I'm like, it's still not Facebook, right? So that's
I love them. I use them all the time.
I do too, but not on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I am probably more on Twitter actually. Yeah.
So what do we have first for the week? What topic?
Let's talk about the LinkedIn events. How exciting is that, right? You had mentioned, Cait, they used to have it, which we all loved, and then they took it away, which seems to be kind of a MO with LinkedIn. There are some things they took away that I really loved, and now it's coming back, which is really useful for a lot of us who are especially doing business events and things like that. And you mentioned you lead or organize the LinkedIn local for your area. So this would be a great feature.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm a LinkedIn local co-host here in Chicago. And one of the issues we've had so much with LinkedIn local, and your local chapter might have changed their name to Local X, is because they don't let us have company pages on LinkedIn using the name LinkedIn. And they don't let us use money to boost any content coming from something called LinkedIn. And then also there's no event pages. So everything's kind of been word of mouth. So I'm really excited to see this feature come back so we can get some more people to our events. And I'm sure other industries as well, because events have become such a great part of the acquisition function for so many people. They have workshops and networking events to kind of get people into their network and into their lead funnel.
Oh, absolutely. And so I think this is a great tool. Hopefully, again, it doesn't get abused, right? People putting their birthday parties or whatever on there and really sticking with just I know I'm such a stickler for things on LinkedIn, really sticking with the business focused events. And I was excited when you mentioned this because I just recently partnered with General Assembly to do workshops and events. And this is a great tool for them to have here in the Houston market to help really expand that Houston campus of theirs. So super excited to jump in and get started. And that was interesting what you mentioned about LinkedIn Local being called Local X or branded as Local X in some of the markets. I haven't seen much activity here in the Houston area with the LinkedIn Local group, and I would love to see more. So I'm hoping that this will help.
Yeah,
this should be a very good update as well, because as you know from LinkedIn's perspective, like they don't always come out with a lot of these features for desktop and mobile. So what I think I really like about this is it's desktop and mobile focused. As you all can probably hopefully see from the actually short video here, I'm going to play this. Well, we've got the LinkedIn Events feature that is available for iOS, Android, and for desktop. Really, I like the fact that they're doing this, that they're finally getting around to making their features available cross-platform. Definitely.
Yeah, another interesting thing about it is how notorious LinkedIn is for giving beta testing versions to certain people. So about a month ago, I got a notification that I had been invited to an event on LinkedIn. And I was like, what? There's events on LinkedIn. And of course, I'm searching the platform, I'm searching the news. I'm like, I can't find anything. And it was just given to a select few. So I'm glad that more people have access now, because I still don't have live streaming. And I may or may not be salty about that. So
yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Cait. I don't have live streaming yet, and I'm a little salty too, because I put one of my shows on hold because LinkedIn was a better platform for it. But you know what? I'm relaunching it on Facebook because I can't
stop waiting.
I can't. Yeah, I stopped. Yeah, can't stop.
Yeah, and I will say, one thing I do hope they do improve for LinkedIn is the fact that their videos aren't playing. That's kind of interesting. But I will say the one thing that to me is very useful about this, like if I'm a business, so previously, hold on 1 second. There goes the video. Let's see what it's doing here. So basically, one thing I'm really impressed with LinkedIn is that normally when you get one of these new features, you have to go and update your app, usually from the App Store. With LinkedIn, I don't actually have to do that. I just go in. If I tap on the left side of the screen, there will be a menu that will fly out, and I can actually scroll down to an events section, tap on the plus sign, and it'll make it an option for me to create an event as the organizer. Super easy, just your standard form you have to fill out with date, time, location, venue, event details, and you can paste in a URL as well and decide if it's a public event or a private event. So super easy, I think. No option. Yeah. Well, you can kind of add, you can add an image, but overall, this is a very useful feature, I think, for businesses. How do you all plan to use it, or do you plan to use it?
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. I just realized because I'm partnered with the Network After Work group here, who is headquartered in Chicago, in fact. And this is a great tool for the corporate office to use, because I'm just the local person. I show up, but it's a great way for us to expand how to really market the events, because right now they're putting all the events on Facebook, and this is a better platform.
And who uses Facebook events? Yeah.
I have one on there for my private birthday party. but I think for a business function, for a business networking function or workshop, as Cait mentioned, or anything else, this is a more relevant platform.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think just it's at the end of the day, it's widening your scope of people who might be interested. Facebook, like obviously, from what I can tell, you're not a huge fan of doing business on Facebook, but there are so many people that are that use that for a lot of their networking. And so maybe if they're not very active on LinkedIn, it doesn't give them a range to be able to invite people to those events, which is fine. It just narrows their scope. But now, if they have employees who are active on LinkedIn, or any admins of the page, or anybody who's maybe an advocate for their brand, they can more share the event where they play online. So it's just broadening everybody's networks, which is great. That's the point.
No, and I agree with you on that, because you're right. There are those of us who don't really like to do a whole lot of business. I mean, the business that I do on Facebook is via my Facebook business pages. I don't use my personal page really for business, because that to me has always been my personal playground. But I am connected to folks on LinkedIn that I'm not connected to on Facebook. And so I want to be able to reach those folks. And this gives you another opportunity to do so.
Maybe invite them to your birthday party next time.
No.
Yeah, and by the way, with this feature, the LinkedIn feature, just a couple of things. Barb Tomlin, who's watching us live, she says, "Hey, this is great news." And Troy Sandage also says, "Hey, he agrees with Ann, better for corporate, because some of those people have their Facebook and LinkedIn group and communications separate from personal and business." And we run into that as well. I mean, the way we, for example, manage the show and communicating with, in our case, we're using Messenger, but for us to communicate with a guest, some people, they don't check Facebook Messenger, for example. So, it's like, well, which platform do I need to be on to go communicate with this person? So I'd say, the other thing also I think that's really important with the LinkedIn events update, and then we're going to move on to something else, is just the fact that, like, if you're not sure which platform your audience spends the most time on, look at the posts that people are making, or that you make, and what kind of responses you get, and who is responding to them. Don't just assume like, oh, hey, I made this post and, I got, 25 likes. The next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go for 30 or 50 likes.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. It's all about who the people are that are tuning in, and making sure you're meeting your audience where they are at. So definitely make sure, you do that. Anybody have any last thoughts on LinkedIn events?
Just the irony that it's big news that LinkedIn rolled out another feature that they had previously taken away, that Facebook is known for. Just the irony. Now introducing this feature that everybody else has.
Yes, it is ironic. I agree with you. And watching LinkedIn over the last year or so and seeing them roll out features that other platforms have had, you're like, okay.
Yes.
Final thoughts.
But hey, that applies to every platform. You've got Facebook doing it. You've got Twitter doing it. You've got LinkedIn doing it as well. But again, here's the thing. It's all about, what can help your business, and LinkedIn events can definitely be a very useful feature if you have a very engaged audience on LinkedIn. So switching gears, I want to talk about the LinkedIn page updates, or do we want to, where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's do that. I think what was the biggest update that we were talking about was the employee notifications.
So what do we have here, Anne?
Right.
You want to introduce that to readers or to viewers? Sorry.
Sure. Yes. So we were talking about updates to LinkedIn pages, company pages, and one of the top things that we were talking about was employee notifications, which, as we all know, employees are encouraged to be your top advocates for your brand, and oftentimes there's a challenge because they're either not active on LinkedIn, or if they are active on LinkedIn, you kind of miss the post. I mean, if you don't see it in that feed at that moment, you miss the post. And then you have to show folks how to go find it on the activity feed. So that's one thing I wish that LinkedIn would make it a little bit easier. But now you have a tool or a way to notify your employees that there are new content out there for your brand. And that helps them to then go share and be the advocates for the company that they are encouraged to be. And so I think that's a useful tool. I hope that, again, with any tool, any feature, it can be abused, right? Like, because if people get too many notifications, they may turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, I like it. I like it a lot.
How do you deal with this if I'm, like, obviously if like I'm a big company and I've got a very big social team and everybody's just in tune with everyone, how do you roll this out to, I guess, different tiers of business? So, for example, from the very well established company all the way down to the solopreneur, what do you think? How can this be useful?
Well, I think where this is going to be the most useful is companies who have multiple different offices who are trying to build that engagement online. Because chances are, I just know from my company, I'm very blessed to have come to Keeper Security in July and have a super engaged sales team. Like, they are engaged. It is awesome. They asked for an employee advocacy tool. They've asked for content. They're all about it. So luckily, I've been able to do a couple of trainings and teach them how to post and optimize their profile. And I give them cover photos for different seasons. But where I really think this is going to be great is for companies that don't have that yet, or they're trying to build that community. So if you're not, but on the other hand, it's also might be a pain point, because if they're not active already on LinkedIn, they don't necessarily know how to interact. So notification might not really do that much for them.
Yeah. So how do you go about? Go ahead. Anne, go ahead.
I was just saying that goes back to the bit of conversation that we had, just like you said, Cait, that the employees aren't really sure how to interact, right? It boils down to education. You're very fortunate to have this, employee advocacy already. You have these guidelines. You've really shown the sales force how to optimize their profile. So you are definitely among the rare companies where you've got the sales force who really want to be involved and engaged. And so, but it just boils down to the company or the social team, whoever it may be, that handles it, to really educate the employees on what they're doing, why they're doing it, why it's important, and show them how to. Because oftentimes I come across companies where they're like, oh, we just want them to go share our posts. But the employees are going, okay, that's nice, I'm sharing it, but why am I sharing it, right? That just gets the content out there, but it doesn't really help with the interactions or the engagements.
Absolutely. Or sharing in a perfect world, people who don't do social media for a living, I always say, like, do social media. They don't necessarily know what just sharing means. It's like, oh, go share this post from the company. But then when the employees go out and say something that you didn't want associated with the post, then you're freaking out. Like, why would you put that online? And it's like, because you didn't teach them. You didn't show them any better.
It's all about education.
Definitely. And there's a lot to this, and there's a lot to unpack. I mean, and I say that from the perspective of more the training aspect. I mean, the fact that, like, employees can get notified. I love all the functionality that is there for LinkedIn company pages. But, as a company, you do need to spend the time educating your staff, helping them understand, like, what's in it for them. Like, a lot of times, if your company, for instance, doesn't have a social media policy, like, you can't force somebody to share something, but you can have something, but you can have things in, an employee contract, for example, about being active on your social media channels, for the company, being a brand advocate, because a lot of times, like, and I'm not going to say this, like, I would say, like, maybe you're not going to do this, but, some companies, like, they might say, like, hey, we'll fire you if you, like, don't share the social media channel or the updates that we're doing, do what?
I said, don't give them any ideas.
So that's something. Yeah, don't necessarily do that, but at the same time, like you have to listen to your employees. Maybe if social is not your thing, for example, find somebody within your company who is very passionate about the company. That's what you want to first tap into, because that's actually helping you move I want to say, like, hey, you have to clear a pathway. And let's say you got, a bunch of big boulders in the way and you got a bunch of small ones. Well, if everybody's picking up all the small ones, you're never going to get to that big one. And so what you need to do is you need to find the people at your company that are most passionate about your company, that will share your content freely, and do a good job at it and know what to say. You need to start using them to move those big boulders, so that the people that are kind of lagging behind, because, hey, social media is not their thing, that's when you can kind of get them on board, and maybe even want to consider, I don't know if you do this, Cait, but maybe consider like a buddy system if you've got help, depending on how big the company is, or maybe like have some teams where, like, you have certain, basically some of your top fans basically at your company, have them go and help other people at the company with their social media, like help them get certain things up, whether it's doing something so simple as, let me update my LinkedIn profile and get it, actually complete, versus like, hey, oh yeah, it'll take me like 2 weeks to get to that. Like, it shouldn't take that long. It's just a profile.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a great bit of advice there, Christian, to find like a brand advocate who may not necessarily be on the sales team, but who's passionate about the company. So they're just as valuable. But I think for the sales team, this is the LinkedIn company pages and the content that's shared is a valuable tool for them to really be out there prospecting and sharing that information with existing customers and prospective clients too. And I get that, being a former salesperson, you're so busy all the time and you're like, one more thing for me to do, right? To share on social, but it's helping them personally too, not just the company. And I think that's the bit that's disconnected a lot. And hopefully with, again, education training, it would help to really close that gap.
And Cait, maybe you can speak to this. So, for example, if somebody at a company, you're like, you're trying to get a team to be social, to be active, and somebody's kind of pushing back, like, well, oh, hey, I already have too many responsibilities. Did y'all do anything to kind of like mitigate that? Do you, maybe you have a shared social media dashboard tool that you're using for scheduling, showing them some of the tips and tricks they can use?
Yeah, we have an employee advocacy tool. We did also for the agency I worked at beforehand, because we did employee advocacy for a couple different companies, and I've been on a few different tools. And I've recently found one this year that I am in love with. They're out of Atlanta. It's called Funnel Amplified. It is perfect for our use case because they have the ability to edit. So where I have teams, we have a team here in Chicago as well as California, obviously native English speakers. And then we have an office in Cork, Ireland, covering our EMEA office. So I can give them the image and the copy, and I can send it to different groups in different time zones and schedule it. And then they can edit it. So they can change any of it into the language covering the territory they'd like to speak to. So it's been a really good godsend for us. Funnel Amplified has been very nice.
Awesome.
Very
I'm making a note of it. That's why I'm typing in advocacy.
It's funny. I'm doing the same thing, Anne, for next for another episode of the show. But yeah, at IBM we had the same thing where again, because the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to give somebody the exact content you want them to share and then just say, like, share this because here's what's going to happen.
Because all of your employees have the exact same post going out there.
Exactly.
Content.
And let's be real. One of the biggest problems with employee advocacy tools is someone in this role, social media manager, whatever that looks like, drags and drops, here's a post. But if you don't educate them or teach them anything, who's to say that the right people are in their networks? I had, a business development representative talk to me the other day and say, well, this post should be speaking to CTOs. And I'm like, are there CTOs in your network? Are you consciously adding CTOs? Because then that's not the case. We're talking to entrepreneurs in your network. And so it's just another thing you have to educate them on.
So the overall theme then is that we need to educate employees, right? And train them.
Absolutely.
And the other key thing I think also with this is it's partly education, but then at the same time, you also have to look at who you're trying to reach. So for example, if your content is trying to reach say the CTO, here's the thing. Chances are that CTO is not going to be on a social media channel. They're busy running a company, so, and it's not to say social media is a bad thing. It's just that you have to be real, basically, and say, hey, you know what? Who am I trying to reach? Am I trying to reach, for example, the president of the company? Or are they going to be active on social media? So what you have to do is you have to go through different channels, and those channels are some of your lower hanging fruit. They're going to be, for example, if you're trying to reach the CTO, maybe you're going to try to reach your developer, the people who have access to the CTO within the company, but are not necessarily the decision makers. So you are going to have to, basically you're navigating up to the top of the funnel. You're not going to reach the CTO, the CEO, the CFO, or any of those people, but you do have access to your employees or to other employees at companies just by picking kind of the right, which lane do I want to go. So anything else you want to cover, by the way, on this LinkedIn page update? I mean, we've got the employee notifications, we've got the completion meter, so helping you get your LinkedIn, sorry, I almost said Facebook page, but help you get your LinkedIn company page improved. So making sure you're completing all of the areas you need to be completing. We've got the kudos and team moments function as well. Anything else?
I also just thought it was kind of interesting. This kind of seems like LinkedIn giving you a tip to like almost hack their own algorithm. Because one of the pieces of feedback I get from our sales team is like, I never see our company updates on LinkedIn. And so I always tell them, go to the company page, like and comment on 4 or 5 posts, and you'll start seeing them. So this is kind of a way of getting around that.
Yeah, yes, I hear that too. It's like, well, I missed the post, I don't see it. And I'm like, well, okay, you've got to go to the company page, right? And then you got to look at the feed. So they don't really make it super easy.
No. And I will say another thing I really like that, this is just hats off to LinkedIn, is that they're publishing these as not just one-off updates. Hey, we updated LinkedIn pages and added employee notifications, but they're actually sending out a mass update for fall 2019 with a host of updates. I like the fact that they're doing that so that you have some time to start working on these, implementing them within your business. And then, you can expect, hey, winter 2019, we're going to have some more updates. So very good job from LinkedIn here. So we've got a couple more topics we want to discuss with everybody. Just a quick reminder, by the way, if you want to get our daily email newsletter, you can get that by going to socialchefs.com/daily. You'll get a daily newsletter from myself and Phil. You'll basically get some topics as well as the blog post recap that we'll be publishing tomorrow, along with some social media tips. So that's socialchefs.com/daily. So we talked LinkedIn. That covers all the LinkedIn updates for the week. Where do you want to go next?
Where do you want to go, Cait? I chose LinkedIn.
Let's do Instagram.
Instagram. Yay. So what do we have going on at Instagram?
Yeah, so Instagram's brand new create feature is really cool. Basically, it lets you post to your stories without using actual images. So a lot of the feedback that I know on the agency side we got from companies trying to utilize Instagram is like, well, it's only a platform for those industries that have beautiful, wonderful pictures. Specifically a cybersecurity platform like what Keeper is, it's like, well, what are we supposed to be posting that's really appealing in an image, and how can we use stories if we don't have a lot of image collateral? So this is kind of what's saved that, or their version of it. So when you go to the Instagram stories, you just swipe left, and it's very similar to how Facebook rolled out the status backgrounds. If you have so many characters or less of being a color or an image, and you got to play with it and pick. And so it's giving you a preset background to post something on your story without that, spending a lot of time making an image or a picture for it.
Right, definitely. I'll say this. I have a couple of clients I've been working with, and a lot of them we're kind of walking through their process for creating content, and they tell me how much time they spend just creating an image, and I'm astonished at how long it takes them to do that. And here's the thing, because a lot of times people, if you're not a creative person, images are not necessarily your thing. I mean, so you struggle there. And so, if you don't have the budget, for example, to hire a graphic designer or have someone on your staff that can do all of this for you, that's valuable time that you're basically wasting. And in a way, with Instagram, for example, with stories, if it was having a photo or video, kind of tying this back. So if you didn't have that, it also is a struggle to say, well, hey, should I use stories? Because, I don't use photos and videos, or I'm not a graphic designer. So it can kind of work against you. So I love the fact that they're actually rolling this out, the create mode for stories. Anne, what do you think, by the way?
I like it. And like you, Christian, I have a couple of clients who want to be more active on stories, but they're not really sure how to go about doing it. Or I'm trying to help them and I may not be at the event that they're at, but I know what's going on. So here's a way for me to kind of share content and help kind of drive engagement to them without actually having to be at the event, because I can't be everywhere. I wish I could. Nobody figure out how to clone folks yet. But I really like this feature as well, just for the same reasons, right? Because not everybody's going to be that creative and or have the graphic designer on staff to do this, and it gives them a way to be in stories, engage with folks with stories, without having to be overwhelmed, I think. So I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this almost to me almost reminds me of having like an easy, a medium, and a hard level for creating content. So, for example, if you throw somebody into stories and you're like, hey, you just, and again, this comes down to education. You're gonna hear us talk about this a lot. You tell somebody, hey, you should use Instagram stories, and they don't know the first thing about that, or they don't know about Facebook stories or YouTube stories, for example. I think the create mode is a great, easy first step. It's to get somebody into the habit of using stories, not to feel overwhelmed with what they need to be creating there. It doesn't need to look perfect. That's the other thing about Instagram stories. I mean, the whole kind of point of them, is so that like it actually, it's where you can share like content when you're in the moment with something, like doing something versus like, oh, hey, this is very overly produced. Keep that in mind. So, Cait, how do you get to this? By the way, this new create mode. I mean, is it iOS? Is it Android? Have you actually checked that out yet? Or
yeah, I actually did pull it up in my iPhone to check it out, and you just swipe left.
Okay.
So when you pull up your stories, you kind of have that option where you can pick a picture you've already had, but you just swipe to the left and you can start. Another thing I didn't mention earlier when we talked about the article is that it's not just the backgrounds, but there was a countdown image, which has become very popular on Instagram stories, as well as some GIFs or GIFs or however you say that word. So some other ways. So another use case that I see this really being used for is those ad hoc, don't have a lot of time to put into a post. So we have a webinar and, we don't have that many seats filled in it, or something's happening and we can drive a little bit of last minute traffic at the last minute. Let's put up this story, make it very simple, not have to spend 15 minutes making a post for something that happens in 15 minutes, right? It's just it's just a last push for engagement.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to use it, I think. And I pulled it up now too, and I see it's create. It's next to the live option at the bottom of Instagram stories, and that used to say text or something like that, I think. And so that's a great way to use it, Cait. And that's what I was thinking too, like a last minute push to say a podcast episode or whatever, like a webinar workshop. Come join us now.
Join us live.
Yes, join us live on Social Chatter.
Definitely. And by the way, so I know we don't have any real Facebook news this week, by the way, but what I would kind of like position Facebook a little bit into this also. So like with this, like you've got the easy, the medium, and the hard, ways to use stories. So for example, on Instagram, another thing that might become, I'm not saying this is going to, but might be coming to Instagram at some point as well. So Facebook actually just today, they rolled out the ability to create custom stories ads. So I'm just throwing this out there. Y'all haven't seen it probably.
No.
So I'm throwing this out there because, you need to start learning how to use stories, because this is the direction that Facebook is wanting to push. Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, both companies that Facebook owns. So while you can't do custom stories ads for Instagram yet, this is something that Facebook has just rolled out literally today. So lots. Yeah, I'll shoot you a link. But yeah, this is a very useful feature. So did you have to actually update your app to get this, or was it already there?
I just opened up the app just now. I didn't have
me too.
to update it.
Very cool. So if you don't see it on Instagram when you launch your Instagram app, maybe check your app store, see if you do need to update. Sometimes people do the auto update feature, but good functionality there.
Absolutely.
So with that, I'm going to move over to our other Instagram topic, and this is dealing with those who manage third-party apps through Instagram. So, Ann, do you want to briefly tell viewers about this one?
Sure. So Instagram now allows you to control what apps have access to your Instagram account, right? Like, so to me, it's very similar to the way Facebook has done this in the past. So I think it's a feature that Facebook took and plopped into Instagram. As we all know, Instagram has been notoriously closed off to third-party apps for security reasons. We get it. And so now we're able to have it access things like Sprout Social. I use Sprout Social as an example for social media management. And so obviously it can access Instagram, and that's an app that would access it. And so now you can go in there into your settings, if I am not mistaken from the instructions here, and control which apps have access to it. Again, very similar to what is already available with Facebook, but not available previously on Instagram. So I think it's a useful tool because so many times people forget what they've given access to, or they've switched tools and then, don't remember to take it off, or in the past you couldn't with Instagram and now you can, and it just is another layer of security.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really great that Instagram is putting those features front and center. Sorry.
Oh no, I was nodding, agreeing.
Oh, okay. I thought Christian had said something.
No,
I like
ahead.
that they're putting everything front and center, because obviously we know Instagram's owned by Facebook. Facebook has not been the most transparent with privacy or data, and that's something that's really, really important to me as I work with influencers and for a cybersecurity company, is all of the ways that our data is linked to these apps and our social media accounts that you don't even know. All of these third-party apps that are linked to your social media from a previous job. Even something that I had a conversation with someone recently was, when I came to the company, I audited our social media, particularly our LinkedIn, and saw that all these people had admin access to the page that didn't work there anymore, and nobody had removed it. So it's kind of scary to think that, where your data is and where you have access. And I like that they're putting this transparently, like, hi, we know this is an issue. Here's a way to fix it. A way, right? Not the way, but a way.
A way to fix it. Absolutely. And that could be a whole story. I mean, a whole show, right, on cybersecurity, right? Like, these are, again, guidelines. Right. Remember to delete the admins that are no longer working at your company. But so this also reminds me, though, and this is what I always advise folks, even for personal use. Hey, because people like to play those games and things on Facebook. And so it gives that app that access to Facebook, and they forget. And I'm like, you need to go in and clean that out every so often. And so does this mean that then Instagram is going to start introducing things like that?
We'll see. We'll have to see what happens. I think that as data privacy is becoming more of an issue and people are opening their eyes to it more, it's probably going to happen. We're probably going to have to start looking at it. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when they rolled out, when Instagram rolled out in Canada to take away the likes feature. The first thing that a ton of teenagers did was switch their accounts to business accounts, so that people could still see their likes, like, oh, we're going to get around this. And then all of a sudden, these like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, their name, email, and phone numbers were listed on their Instagram account. So I love that we're putting emphasis on this, because we just don't know what's out there.
Yeah, you're right. And it goes back to what we've been talking about, education, right? I mean, these 14, 15-year-olds don't know the ramifications of switching their accounts to a business account. Your contact information is now out there for everybody to see. I'm sure their parents just love that, right? But it also just speaks to how, this whole vanity metrics, likes, and let's not even start on that topic just now.
Yeah, but, it doesn't matter. Like, big deal. You get a bunch of likes on a post. It's a great topic. Like, having, the like count is important if you're the person that does the posting, but if you're not the person that's doing the posting, you're trying to, gauge other people. Like, it's good for you to be able to see it and see what people are reacting to. People shouldn't react, though, based on the fact that, like, oh, hey, it has a whole bunch of likes on it. so definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So,
Really.
so I'm actually I'm experiencing a little technical difficulties right now.
We can still hear you. Your visual, your video is frozen, but we
like in
can
a very
still
pensive like pose.
Yes,
You're like,
yes.
Instagram.
So I have a black screen going on here for me, but I'm working to actually get this fixed. So we've talked about Instagram's create mode for stories. We talked about third-party app access. So by the way, one question I have for both of you while I try to work on this. How often do you recommend people go in and clean out their apps? Like, I think part of it to me is just really poor management of their accounts. Is it because people are too busy? Is it because they're lazy? I'm not sure what the answer is. But what do you recommend, for somebody, if I'm a business, for example, how often, like, should I maybe do this if I'm going to go do an audit of my account, maybe do it every month or every couple of months? What do you recommend?
Okay,
I think you should be. Sorry, go ahead.
I said I'll leave that to Cait, the cybersecurity expert.
Cybersecurity expert. Well, I mean, I definitely think you should be auditing your accounts every single quarter. That's for everything from the apps that you give access to any admin access that's on your account that doesn't need to be there, to just images and SEO and maybe hashtags. Another common thing that I see a lot is people change their website on their Instagram bio to lead to, quarterly campaigns or certain things they have going on, and then they never go change them back. So definitely every quarter, make sure you're auditing those accounts. And I would, suggest you putting in a little extra attention to the data privacy settings, because, it's just amazing how much of your information is out there right now. And then just as a little plug, you should be changing your passwords too. If there's any chance that an old employee, an old client, an old anybody would have access to it.
Very cool. So
great.
I'm going to be right back, by the way. I'm going to do a quick restart. We'll keep the show going, by the way. Feel free to discuss maybe some of these topics, take some questions while I am restarting. I'll be right back, everyone.
Very cool.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with you, at least on a quarterly basis, right? And even possibly monthly if you can, but at least give yourself a checklist for doing it quarterly, because just as you mentioned, you have employees who leave or switch roles, and they probably should not have admin access to your accounts any longer, or any of the apps that they may have used, or any previous tools that your company has used. You need to make sure that that access is no longer there. Otherwise, you could end up with a disgruntled employee who's wreaking havoc with the business.
And Troy just chimed in too, and he said every 2 months. That's what they do as part of their product and tech team. So yeah, I think that's great. I think every industry is a little bit different where you feel comfortable. Depends on how high your turnover is, how big your company is. But it's definitely something that you want to set a reminder to do, and don't let it fall through the cracks, because that's how something bad could happen.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I hear so often that people are like, oh, what a pain. I got to change my password again. But you got to do it, right? And you can't just go, John Smith 1 and then John Smith 2. That's no. And so there are tools out there like Keeper Security that help you to manage this. And I live and die by it. I use a different tool. I won't mention it, but I literally, if I do not have that application, I have no access to any of my things, because I have different passwords for every thing that I sign into, which is what you should. And so how am I going to remember 50 passwords or whatever it is?
Yeah.
I just have to remember one.
Absolutely. And that's amazing, because you're so much farther along than so many people I meet. Really, honestly, there's still so many people I meet. There was just a study recently that came out where, you assume the millennials or the Gen Zers or, one group of people are the ones that don't know anything about cybersecurity, the older generation, whatever it is that you assume in your brain, but it's really everybody. We're just seeing that younger and younger they are, the more they have tech in their hands, the less they know about cybersecurity. It's very startling.
Well, and I think that they don't think of it, right? They don't think of the consequences or the ramifications of it because they haven't experienced it yet, or they're, just starting out their career, or they're so used to just growing up with tech in their hands that it's not it's a second, not even a thought to them actually. And so when something does happen, then you're like, ooh, how do I fix this? And then it may be too late.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, there is nobody that has quicker hands on a phone hitting a decline button than a 3-year-old on his mom's phone watching YouTube. I've seen it happen with my godson. They're just so used to clicking around, opening their phone. They're automatically signed in. Most of them probably don't even really know what a password is, let alone why you should have multiple. So, it's something that Keeper's trying to educate everybody on.
Exactly. Well, just as an example, I have a friend who purchased a MacBook Air for her middle school, junior high's age son, and we can't get back into it because, and on a MacBook, right, it should be pretty impenetrable to viruses. But we can't get into it because God knows what's been installed and downloaded and everything, because this piece of education hasn't been, given to this child.
Absolutely. Ever since I've started working here too, I just have so many stories. It's so interesting.
Because
it affects everybody.
Happen to them, right? Yeah. And in fact, I've got a friend who I think is quite tech savvy, right? She's we consider her the tech guru for some of her business organizations, and she got one of those ransom emails, crazy. So there you go. It can happen to the best of us.
Happens to everybody.
So happens. What was it you and Christian were talking about? Bonjoro, right?
Yeah, Bonjoro, the video tool.
Yes, let's talk about Bonjoro. What do you know about it?
So Bonjoro is a video tool that kind of helps connect video to different parts of your marketing and sales flow. So similar to Vidyard, if you're familiar with that, where you can use videos to send messages. Christian before had brought up, like an email newsletter kind of welcome video. Sales reps can use them in their acquisition. So just different ways to kind of integrate video into the marketing and sales process, as well as, put a face behind emails, because in this digital world, everything's type, and oftentimes, we're working remotely with people. We have clients on other sides of the country, the world, wherever. And so the face-to-face interaction's kind of been taken out of it.
You're right. And I think because we live in such a tech-focused world, we're just typing away and things like that. But it's so nice to be able to put a face to what you're typing, to the words behind the screen, and a voice, and have a conversation, even if it's via, video, or like we're doing right now, on this show. So I like that. I like that tool. I tried out Vidyard for a bit, but to me it felt
clunky. That's what I've heard from people.
Yes. And I pride myself on not being too, whatever tech non-savvy, but I found it clunky. So I thought, okay, is it the user or is it the tool itself? And so I'm definitely going to check out Bonjoro, because I'd love to include more video in marketing messages.
I'm kind of surprised that LinkedIn hasn't just rolled out their own Bonjoro tool yet, because it seems to be videos so hot on LinkedIn. They're trying to make more use cases to use it. You would think that they would just do their own video tool next to their voice tool for salespeople or whoever to just send out videos right there in LinkedIn. But until then, there's Bonjoro.
There you go, LinkedIn. That's another idea for you.
Yeah.
So what did I miss, by the way? Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties there.
Oh, you're fine. We just discussed cybersecurity a little bit more. Kind of, I threw in a little plug for Keeper Security. Is it keepersecurity.com?
Yep.
There you go. And then we started talking about Bonjoro a bit. So you did.
Okay. So let me just bring up. Actually, I'll bring up both of these. So give me 1 second here. So, okay. So we talked, did we talk about YouTube AR at all or no?
No.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll throw YouTube AR, since it's, we're getting close to that 60 minutes show. I want to make sure that we value obviously viewers' time. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, or you're listening to the new podcast that we have out as well, up on iTunes. But we will make sure we put all that in the recap as well. That will be available at socialchefs.com/SC213 for episode 213. So socialchefs.com/SC213. That'll get the recap. So we're going to move on to, and I think y'all briefly talked about it. Moving on to tool time here. We're going to talked about Bonjoro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
we did.
Okay. Did we talk about the price, everything, all that stuff?
No, we just started talking about video, the capabilities of it. I think Cait went through some of the features, and we mentioned how, Cait mentioned how too bad LinkedIn hasn't come out with its own Bonjoro like tool. So who knows? Maybe they will.
Okay. So yeah. So what's the so we talked about the tool. What's the cost of this tool?
Oh,
you still there?
I had not looked at it yet. Yes.
Ah, okay. So we got a free, so we got a free version of Bonjoro. So basically it's creating basically videos. You can do this via their mobile app, their web app, and so on to send this out to your customers. So instead of getting them to opt in and saying, hey, here's some text, thanks for joining. I think you'll probably cover this, by the way. You can quickly record that with Bonjoro. The price, there is a free trial option available. You can also, so it's 14-day free trial. You can also use it for free if you want to create 50 videos. And again, these are 50 little short videos. And then obviously you're going to get the Bonjoro branding on it. You can move up to the startup package, $25 per user, unlimited videos, messaging templates, custom branding, and obviously your standard features that you're also getting with the free accounts. Have either of you used, do what?
I said that's not bad. I think that's affordable pricing, right? Especially if, like for me, I'd be in that startup category. But let's integrations. That was my question. How easy is it to integrate into what you're already using? Do you have any information on that? I know they've got the integrations tab there.
So actually, the one cool thing is they integrate with Zapier, which was pretty fantastic. Basically, you pretty much can map out your connections, and have certain actions fire based on what somebody does. Again, the same thing. These are things that your email marketing service can partially do. Like, for example, move somebody from, if somebody, for instance, opens an email, you can tag their account with an open option, move them over to, maybe another list, or tag them with another keyword if they do certain things as well, like if they click a certain type of link. But that's their integration. So they obviously say, hey, 2,000 possible integrations, but again, it's also tied to Zapier. So lots of functionality there, but Zapier is typically it's a paid tool, but they work with lots of different services. So we've got Gmail, we've got ConvertKit, we've got Drip, we've got MailChimp, we've got Shopify. So these are direct integrations, and then you get into the Zapier side of things. So you got some hub integration. Yeah. So very useful tool.
An ActiveCampaign. I don't know if you guys have any experience with ActiveCampaign. Yep. That's like my official favorite email database.
Yep, very, very good service, actually. I've used it before as well. I like their autoresponders series. It works.
Yeah,
awesome.
Very cool.
Cool. What about Vidyard? Have you used Vidyard? I don't know. You guys probably have talked about it on a previous episode, but that's what I was comparing it to.
I've not used Vidyard recently, but yeah, it's very comparable to that. And any feedback on Vidyard as well?
I've given them a trial, and as I was mentioning to Cait before you came back on, I found it clunky, and so I really didn't continue to use it. And of course, they kept sending me messages, "Create your video now," but I was like, "You're not making it easy for me to use." So I would love to find something, and I'm definitely going to try out Bonjoro, because to me, it's always about the ease of use too. I mean, I consider myself fairly tech savvy, and if I'm finding it clunky, then the normal user consumer may find it even more clunky. And then what's the point of getting a tool if you're not going to use it?
Exactly. And that's the key thing. Like, you can have all the fancy tools in the world, but if you're not implementing them in your business and and getting the functionality out of them, they're not going to really serve as much of a purpose.
No.
Spend a bunch of money on something that is not going to, it's not helping you. So
absolutely.
Tool number two is SharpSpring. And do you want to tell viewers about SharpSpring?
Sure. So SharpSpring is a marketing automation platform, just very similar to another larger one called Hubspot. Okay. I, in fact, just had a client implement this SharpSpring with their Salesforce and within their company. And I love the fact that it integrates everything, right? The CRM, the email marketing, and then the social aspect of it, because you can also manage social and post and things like that via SharpSpring. But what I really liked about it too is that it takes the social activity of your prospects and adds it into the lead scoring for the Salesforce within the CRM. And so, it helps to socially sell, basically. And that's, I think, I haven't come across that type of feature, or maybe it's just newer in other marketing automation platforms that I haven't really, gone back and explored previously. What I do like about this is the pricing is a little bit better than HubSpot, say for a smaller company. It's still a little high for, say, a solopreneur or someone who has only one or two people in their company. But if you've got a small company with a small sales force that needs to have everything in one place, I think this would be a great option. And so, again, nothing out of the norm from any of the other marketing automation. I found the customer service to be good. The training was good. I sat in it with the client, things like that. I think it boils down to just kind of the pricing.
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did a demo of SharpSpring at an agency I was working at. It was a very, very small agency, so they were a little bit out of our budget, but it seemed really, really great. And what I liked about it is that it integrated so well with social, which I personally don't think HubSpot does quite as well. So it was really nice, and they were very fantastic, really great on the demo. It was just a little bit out of our price range. But I think if you're looking for a HubSpot alternative and you're very social media emphasized, this would be a really good platform to try out.
Definitely. And another thing I also want to highlight here, you'll see there's 1,500 contacts and 10,000 contacts and 20,000 contacts. And the key thing to keep in mind, I think, with this as well is you want to make sure you're moving people through the tool. So don't just like collect, Jay Bear said this once, like don't just collect like people as like baseball cards or bottle caps or something. So, so like, if you've got 1,500 people, you're like, hey, I have 2,000. Well, or do you actually have 2,000, or do you have maybe 1,000 that are actually active versus I have 2,000 people on my list that I'm trying to work with?
Great point. And it integrates with your existing email, right? Like Outlook or whatever, so that you can have just like any other CRM. And so that's a great way for you to keep track of all that stuff. So does that, I wonder if they consider that as part of the contacts, or is it just contacts in your lead list?
Cait, do you know anything about that part, or?
No, I really don't. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's a good question to ask. I didn't even think about asking that, and that's a good point about the contacts. But you're right. It's just like every other tool. If you're just collecting contacts and not putting them into the funnel or putting them through your campaign,
qualifying them as leads. Absolutely.
Then what's the point? So you've got to be able to use it.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, it's a pricey tool, not something that everyone would use. But they do offer the option to schedule a demo. So I'd say, check that out. That is SharpSpring. So with that, I don't have any more topics to cover this week. Do you have anything else you want to bring up? Anything you want to, you had a thought on something that you didn't get to share earlier? Whatever, anything?
Oh gosh, now I think we talked about a lot of things.
So we covered a lot.
We did. I'm definitely going to go check out the LinkedIn stuff and see if I have access to any of this yet.
Yeah, very exciting.
I was doing some of it while I was here on the show, and I have access to some of them. So very, very good updates, I think. I mean, I think all around, all across the board here this week, with our Instagram updates, our LinkedIn updates, our YouTube updates, the YouTube AR feature that we didn't talk about. That is a really cool update if you're in the industry. So make sure you check out that by going to the blog post recap, socialchefs.com/SC213. That'll be published tomorrow. Any parting thoughts you want to share? Any tips? Any questions you think we should pose to viewers maybe? What do you think?
Cait?
I'm good. This was super fun. I love this format. I had a blast.
Yes, it was fun. I think the only last thought is what we had discussed quite a bit during the show is that regardless of what tool it is, you've got to educate and train folks and then to use it. Otherwise, it's not, it doesn't do you any good.
So what I'll do then is I'll pose a question to people who are watching, but I'll share my question here in a second before we wrap things up. But before I do that, I want to thank Cait for joining us this week. Fantastic having you on the show, by the way. Thanks a lot for getting up early as well to join us. What's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
So I'm super active on LinkedIn, and you can find me right there, Cait Hassett. It's Cait with a C. And then same handle for Twitter. I'm trying to bump up my Twitter game. I've been more active there. And then same handle for Instagram. So really anywhere.
Awesome. So, and feel free to drop that in the, so if you're watching the live video, or the replay, feel free to drop the, link to your accounts that you think, want people to connect you at. Feel free to drop comments, on this post. We'd really appreciate that. I know viewers would really appreciate it. Just a couple of quick things, on my end. As I mentioned, we've got the blog post recap, socialchefs.com/SC213. That'll give you access to the video replay. You'll get access to the Alexa Flash briefing that we published, the podcast episode, as well as the written content, along with links to everything that we've been covering. For those of you who want to join next week, by the way, next week we'll be on Facebook and on YouTube as well. We're going to have Phil back on. We're going to be there at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook or YouTube. And our guest is going to be Judy Fox.
Love her.
We're going to have her on as well. So hopefully, Cait, you'll have a couple minutes to stop by next week.
Yes, I definitely will.
But it has been a pleasure having you on. So I want to pose one quick question, I guess, to everybody who's watching or listening to us. Do you have an educational program in place in your business to train, whether it is an employee or a contractor that you have hired or a virtual assistant that you're working with? Do me a favor. You can connect with us. Our social channels, we're all at Social Chefs. But do us a favor, send us a tweet, post a message on our Facebook page, or even on the YouTube video if you're watching the replay. But I want to hear from you. If you have a program, tell us what you do. What do you do? How do you go about educating people on social, to get them, if somebody's not friendly, not used to it, how do you get them to actually, take a vested interest in doing it? Because a lot of times people look at it and say, hey, social, it's a big waste of time. They think it is, but it's like, what? No, it isn't actually, because it can drive leads, it can drive sales, it can help your branding, and so much more, like your website traffic, so much more when you do it right. But do us a favor and leave us a comment on that question. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. But Cait, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Anne had to drop, but pleasure having you on this week. Again, blog post recap going out tomorrow, but we will see you all next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.